I found it very interesting when I was going through the book. It's sort of, I thought of don't judge a book by its cover, because it says that some companies on the face of it are fancy, seem to have everything going, and they could be in shambles actually. So clearly the details are in the P&L account.
And the balance sheet.
And the balance sheet.
I think even more important than the P&L is the balance sheet. Interesting, that's interesting. Lots of people who do understand focus so much on the P&L that they neglect the balance sheet. And I think the heart is in the balance sheet. So ability to read both, not only one, is very, very... In fact, I must share with you a very interesting concept we're working on. I've always said at the end of a training program what we've done is we've created a financially intelligent individual. But that's not enough. What you need is a financially intelligent organization. So there we've launched this concept. It's first of its kind in the world, very interestingly. It's like an ISO certificate for finance. We said, now what we'll do is we don't want to train a handful of people. Now when a new client approaches us, normal request is I want to train these 50, 100, 500 guys. I said, if you've got 10,000 people, I think all 10,000 should understand this. And the easiest is all 10,000 should have a copy of the book. So first step. But next step is we will train everybody across the board. Out of 10,000, we might give 2-hour input to 6,000 of them. To key people, we might take them through 5-day program, somebody through 2-day. But simultaneously what we'll do a diagnostic study of your systems, we'll suggest tweaking the system, we'll recommend MIS reports to be generated, frequency with which to be generated, who should be the recipient of which MIS report, and parallelly make sure he's trained to read, understand and take action based on that. And folks, if the entire organization is financially literate and the systems are in place, then we will certify that you are now a financially intelligent organization, FIO. Hope and dream is in the years to come, this FIO should have the power of ISO. Bankers should insist, unless you're an FIO, I'm not going to give you a loan. Shareholders should say, I will buy the shares provided you're an FIO. Why? Because financial mismanagement causes 90 to 95% of failures. So if the organization is not financially intelligent, the price is paid by the banker, price is paid by the investor. Everybody pays the price. Employees lose jobs, vendors lose money. So it is in the mutual interest of everybody that an organization's finance management is good. So this book, Sabir, therefore, thank you very much. I must use this opportunity to express my gratitude for having tied up Harper, for having, brought out with this book. I think there's lots to be done, and world is the market. India, of course, world is the market. So.
I want to emphasize on the organization a bit later, but you've spoken about the importance of profit. It's not just money coming in minus money going out, while the top line is a means, of course, to achieve profit. If you could just tell us a little bit more about this.
Yeah. Another thing that I find very distressing is that you ask people, what's business all about? First top figure in the P&L is sales, which is called the top line. Bottom figure is profit. So are we in business to generate top lines, or are we in business to generate bottom lines? Unfortunately, it's not funny how many organizations' entire focus is on top line. And then tragic things happen where the top line of the organization is going up and bottom line is coming down. You defeated the entire objective. So business is all about bottom line, as she said. Top line is a means. When I say business about bottom line, the sales people in the room get very offended, So they feel better if you tell them there cannot be a bottom line without a top line. Top line equally important. But when I say bottom line, what I mean is, we are not interested in generating just about any kind of sales. The sales that we bring has to be such, the terms on which you sell have to be such, the prices on which you sell have to be such, the credit period offered to the customer has to be such, which eventually brings about a positive bottom line. So it's a means towards an end. And there's a second pillar. Now that we are on the topic, successful businesses stand on 2 pillars. One, ability to generate profit. Folks, if your business is making a profit, you won half the battle. Second half is the ability to manage cash flow. And the big mistake people make is they equate profit with money. Profit and money have got no connection. You could be making lots of profit and have no money at all. And you could have plenty of money in the bank and not making profits. So if you can take care of these 2 pillars of your organization, one can virtually guarantee you will avoid most of the financial mismanagement pitfalls. But even if one pillar gets weak, the organization will pay a price for it.
Speaking of pitfalls, it says that some organizations get into trouble when they don't make a profit, and some do when they do make a profit. So double-edged sword here, if you'd like to give us more
I'm a
details.
teacher at heart, so I'm making me feel I wish I had a projector and a presentation I could have shown you. We can illustrate, there's this company making tons of profit. How much profit have they made? Maybe a few thousand crores. So what kind of bank balance? And suddenly you realize, oh, they got a negative bank balance. So they said, profit is half the battle. In fact, why do companies get into trouble? Because they make profits? Because if you know how to make profits and you don't know how to handle cash, what happens if you make a profit? Let's say you're a large organization. You made 1,000 crore profit. What happens? Folks, profit is a dangerous term. It is a very, very dangerous figure. The moment you show profit, the line of people standing like this outside your door. Employees are expecting a bonus. Government of India says, wow, you made a profit, 40% should come to me. Shareholders are expecting dividend. Profits raise expectations. And if you don't have the money, you can't meet those expectations. And companies have shut down because they made profits. Because they had the profit, but they didn't have the money to meet those expectations. You can't tell your employees, I don't have money, I can't give you bonus. There could be a strike. You can't tell Government of India, I don't have money, I can't pay you income tax. You say, they sell your infrastructure. Tax you have to pay. You can't tell shareholders, no money, no dividend. Stock market, your value will collapse. So some companies get into trouble because they don't make profits. Others get into trouble because they make profits. Why? Because they knew how to make profits, but they didn't know how to handle cash flow. So, I think you're asking some wonderful questions. I mean, had I thought of to tell you what question to ask, I would have probably asked you to. I must tell you, since she agreed, yesterday a book was delivered to her. She apparently has read it overnight. Thank you so much. Out of your busy schedule, and therefore you're asking all these right questions. Great.
Right, and I have some more for you. So, I know as a woman, they say in makeup, less is more. But apparently, when there's success for a business, less is bad and more is even worse.
Yeah, that's another dictum of mine. I need 1 hour to explain all this. Less is bad, more is worse. One of the arts in a business is how much money to raise. I wish again I had a balance sheet in front of me. So left side of the balance sheet in India, liability side tells you where the money has come from, right side tells you where the money has gone. And the big question is, how much money should they raise? Should a business have less money than it needs, or should it have more money than it needs? I mean, let's say you want to start a new hotel. Somebody wants to start a hotel, 100-story building. If he raises less money, he reaches the 60th floor, runs out of money. How can he run his business? Folks, if you have less money than you need, you're going to get into trouble. But if you have more money than you need, I think you will get into bigger trouble. How you will get into trouble? You will have to sit through my session maybe. I read an hour at least. But there my answer is, this rule applies. Oh yeah, of course. Sorry. First read the book. Book has all the answers. But this rule applies across life. Less is bad, more is worse. That's my mantra. What kind of manpower should you have in your organization? Less than necessary or more than necessary? You have less, you'll suffer. You have more, you'll also pay a price. What kind of installed capacity should you have in your factory? Less is bad, more is worse. What kind of, inventory should you maintain in your warehouse? What kind of blood pressure should we have in the body? Less is bad, more is worse. This rule applies across life. And therefore the name of the game is optimization. Everything has to be at an optimum level.
Now, only because I'm in the field that I am in, I have to ask you, NPAs, non-performing assets, that's a buzzword going about right now. Anything that you'd like to tell us a little bit about keeping them in check, which you have
I
shared?
speak a lot about NPA, but my NPA is different from the NPA we read about. We normally hear of NPAs in the context of banks. But I'm saying within an organization, if I give you a quick, do you mind if I give you a 5-minute lecture on good finance management? In a balance sheet, one side tells you where the money has come from, right side tells you where the money has gone. And one of the tricks is, everybody knows you must earn more than your cost of production, more than your cost of selling, more than your cost of admin and so on. But what people don't understand is what is left behind. Your profit should be equal to or greater than the cost of capital. So let's say your liability side includes, what does it include? It includes borrowed money, it includes owner's money, and it includes vendor's money. Which of these three have a cost? Which one is free? Owner's money is free. That's the biggest myth. Owner's money is not free. It is perhaps the most expensive source of money available. So now if you work out the cost of capital, the entire left-hand side of your balance sheet, and you attribute a higher cost to owner's money as compared to at least 2 times more. If you're borrowing at 12%, then owner's money should be minimum 25 or more. If I had time, I would have convinced you about it soon. So if your average cost of capital is 25%, left-hand side of the balance sheet tells you where the money came from, right-hand side tells you where it went, and where it goes helps you to earn. So if your left side costs 25, right side should earn 25. So first of all, that's your target. How much should it earn? That should earn 25, which means what is left behind after meeting your cost of production, marketing, etc., etc. But then we realize every penny on the left-hand side costs, but every penny on the right-hand side doesn't earn. Why does it not earn? Because your assets can be broken up into performing assets and non-performing assets. Now what's a performing? Every company has to have. I mean, non-performing doesn't mean not essential. So it's a bigger crime to possess non-essential non-performing assets. It's bad enough you need to have essential non-performing assets. And simplest example is you own a car. Is it a performing asset or a non-performing asset? It runs beautifully. But yours is a non-performing asset. The taxi driver's car is a performing asset. So some assets earn for you, some assets don't earn for you. And my observation is, if you happen to be a very, very lucky organization, you'll probably have a breakup between performing and non-performing of 50-50. If you're lucky, 50-50. If not, your NPA could be even higher. That alters your equation. If your sources are going to cost you 25%, then users must earn 25. And now to your horror, you discover half the users don't earn. So the other half will have to earn how much? Target goes up to 50. So the NPA is used in the context of businesses as compared to the banks. So, but much more in the book.
Then delving deeper, the credibility trap is also something that you've highlighted. Would you like to?
That will be impossible. Yeah, very important. I don't know where to start and where to end that, but credibility trap. How many of you from business background? Okay. Your working capital. Working capital is made up of, there's a term called net working capital. Why do you need, okay, very simple analysis of a balance sheet. Right hand side tells you, why do you need money? You need money for 2 things. You need money to create infrastructure. Kinjal has to have this wonderful infrastructure, but then he has to fill it with books. So you need money for working capital. So infrastructure in a manufacturing would be factories and buildings and lands and so on. And working capital is having built the factory. You need to spend more money to create inventory. You need money because you don't earn every day, but your spending happens every day. So you need to hold on to liquid cash for day-to-day expenses. And the sad fact in a business is, not a sad fact, but a harsh reality is, there are many customers who will give you large orders. They'll buy from you, I'll buy 10 crore worth of tables, but I'm going to pay you 60 days later. But you spend money on making or buying these tables. So third requirement of working capital is debtors. So these 3 items comprise working capital. But then if you sell on credit, you also buy on credit. So your creditors reduce your requirement of working capital. So the difference is called net working capital. One rule, if you want to be successful in business, make sure your net working capital is positive. That means creditors are people who are going to come knocking on your doors asking for money. On the other hand, you've got people whose doors you can go knocking, give me my money. Make sure that what you have to ask for is greater than what you have to pay. Otherwise, you have to sell your building to pay those guys. But then what happens is, the more the credibility you have, coming back down to your answer, the greater the people are willing to give you credit. Probably book suppliers will tell you, Kinjal, take the, pay me later, no problem. The more the credibility you enjoy, chances are vendors want to deal with you. If you're a Tata Motors, if you're an L&T, everyone wants to deal with you. When there are more suppliers than you can accommodate, they first start competing on price. When price-wise they are all at par, they start competing on credit period. They start offering you longer and longer periods. Tendency is to buy from the vendor who gives the longest period of credit. And consequently, what happens at times, your creditors become higher than your debtor. And if you are a wonderful company, you can afford to sell on cash or low credit period. So my point is, this negative working capital, which is a trap, paradoxically it will happen, the better the reputation you enjoy, the more likely people are going to offer you. And therefore, you need the financial intelligence to understand where to draw the line and say, gentlemen, thank you very much, I'm honored by your offer, but I don't want it. I call this the credibility trap. That means people who get into trouble are not necessarily the bad companies. It can happen to the best of organizations unless finance management is constantly kept under control, unless you keep your finger on the pulse all the while. Much more in the book.
So just to wrap it up, you've summed it up by saying that India's growth eventually is also so contingent on financial literacy for all. So
you read the entire book in one night. My God,
went
you
through
read the
as
end of
much
the
as
book.
I could. So just if you could highlight a little bit more about that and who your book is targeting. Of course, everyone, as you said.
Yeah, since established fact is most business failures are due to bad finance management. And recent history has told us not only businesses have failed due to bad finance management, entire economies and countries have collapsed. The entire subprime crisis of United States can be attributed to bad finance management. Right now, countries in Europe, Greece, Portugal, Spain are paying the price of bad finance management. So, point is, if bad finance management is so bad, then everybody must practice good finance management. And I feel in this Make in India story, the India growth story, if there's going to be one stumbling block, that is going to be financial illiteracy. So in fact, we also have a social project called Financial Literacy for All, which is an attempt to train 1 billion Indians, free of cost. So that is parallelly going on. So there's one social, in between we train about 2,000 companies across 5 continents. And on the other hand, we have this financially intelligent, that's the other extreme of, so we're covering the entire spectrum. And the idea is anybody, anywhere in the world, speaking any language from any industry, if you want to learn finance management, you should have an answer. This book itself is being translated in 18 foreign languages.